People in the room, there will be a point where we'll do a little writing and some note-taking and stuff. So folks in the room have pen and paper. You may want to take a second to grab a pen at home if that will be useful to you. And at the end, we'll have a little opportunity to do a little creating of our own. So that's what that's about. And I'll talk more to that as we go through. I often like to start with a blessing. This is from the poet, priest, philosopher John O'Donohue, and I wish I could do it in his beautiful voice, but unfortunately I can't quite do that. I won't even try. But John says, "May your soul beautify the desire of your eyes, that you might glimpse the infinity that hides in the simple sights that seem worn to your usual eyes." I think John is talking about seeing the extraordinary in the day-to-day. And we don't always see it. What can we do to turn that on? And that's from his book of blessings. It's called Benedictus. Blessings for all occasion. Very, very useful and helpful. So I wanted to talk with you all a little today about beauty. And our philosophers and our artists have 1,000 definitions, and they've got a lot more to say on this than I probably ever will. But for simplicity, let me suggest a very simple and straightforward definition. I want to call beauty a certain quality in things that can inspire us to be better human beings. A certain quality in things that can inspire us to be better human beings. Beauty is definitely a member of that category of things. I know it when I see it, right? So sometimes things are hard to describe, but we do know it. Our heart lets us know when we're in the presence of beauty. So help me a little. How and where do we see beauty? Do we know beauty? Just, holler out a couple thoughts. Where's something that you see beauty in? Go ahead. In happiness. I like that. So in a very human emotional state. Beautiful. In people. In their interactions and their physical beauty, of course. Yeah, so all sorts of aspects of humanity we find beautiful. I like that. Good. Anyone else? In nature. I don't know who said that, but yes, absolutely. Very much in nature. We'll talk to that a good bit. So sometimes things that aren't necessarily happy or full of rainbows and sunshine also have a certain beauty in them. I love that. Yes, thank you, John. So here's my thoughts. Let's go here. Yeah, beautiful. See, beauty is part of our language. And when something goes right and well, what do we say? Beautiful. So I don't know what that means, but there's many levels that we can approach the topic. We may know beauty clearly in the created world, where what happens, beauty enters through our senses, our eyes, or our ears, or sometimes touch or smell, and quickly moves into our hearts. And that's where the reaction happens. Think of the experience of a beautiful sunset, an exceptional one. This was Arizona. Flower, the sea, a myriad of things in the natural world strike us as beautiful, right? Noticing beauty, we may respond quite physically, perhaps with a tear. You haven't experienced that welling up of emotion. Something just hits us so hard. I love when that happens, I would like to know the mechanism for that, but you have to be there, right place, right time, I suppose, and right condition. Our physical senses engage. Something processes through us and our hearts open up and sing. Don't overlook the little things in our gardens or on the forest floor. For that matter, pretty much everywhere around us. Great beauties are often missed because our attention is on the grand and the big and the exciting and the extravagant. What about the simplicity of a cool breeze on our brow on a hot day? Is there beauty in that? A hiding frog's toe. I love this image. This frog's like he's doing a good job, but he forgot to bring that toe in. So, yeah. Just a simple, quiet moment after a day full of scurrying. Is there beauty in that? I think so. Often unnoticed, the little things are often as powerful as the big. And then to the thought here, beauty in people. It might be as simple as the ice cream and the young girl's delight. Or what about when we witness or participate in the love between people, expressed or unspoken, freely given, secretly wished, right? And to the idea that things often don't have to be sunshine and roses to be beautiful, or sunshine and rainbows. This is the flower seller of Dublin, and if you look closely, she's not real happy about having her picture taken on the street. But I thought that she was beautiful. The fact that she's blooming out of her, just such a beautiful image. And the fact that she's grumpy at me for having captured this image, there's beauty in that too, right? So, do the beauties that you observe in others, in togetherness, in our interactions and your interactions with the people you love, do they touch your heart? Is there beauty there? I think so. I think so. We may also see beauty in the abstract, in the thoughts and ideas, the constructs of our minds, and in the concrete, in arts and crafts, the works of our hands and our hearts. Right? The power of words, the elegance of mathematics and science, notions of creativity, natural law, justice, equality, all manner of very real abstractions have inspired seekers and makers of beauty since time uncounted. And the created things themselves, our arts and our crafts, often made with no practical end, but to express some beautiful flight of spirit, some upwelling in us. We feel the need to make something, to share that beauty, to put that beauty into something physical. Think painting, of course, think stained glass. National Cathedral, I encourage you to do the behind the scenes tour if you've never done that. I touched the rose window. Ah, beautiful. All kinds of making. We have our own rose window.
That's right. Right.
Architecture, music, the written word, things that we make, ideas and concrete things. And now,
Do you think that there's any place where beauty is not?
Peggy's asking if there's any place where beauty is not.
Only when we don't have eyes.
I would say, and we could debate this, I'm sure, we could go philosophical, that there is beauty everywhere and everywhen. And the question is, are we equipped in that moment to see it? We might only see the dark, but there may be a silver lining. We could argue that. That would be a fun discussion. That's a great question. I love that. Somebody said this morning, we don't use the word unbeautiful. It was a perfectly unbeautiful evening. No, we don't do that. That's not really part of our language. So let's take a step back. Let me ask you to revisit these gentle considerations and replace the word beauty with the word God. Imagine that beauty is how the Creator appears in the creation, present to us everywhere and always. There's that, all right? If we only look, if we're only capable of looking, right? In nature, just like beauty writ large and small, in love, in the human condition, in human interactions, not always happy, right? And in the constructs of our minds and hearts and hands. Right? And how should we respond to the call of beauty? If beauty is the maker's fingerprint on the world, a sign of immanence, of presence, if we are made in the image of the maker, does it not stand to reason that perhaps our making of beauty is imitating God in his creative role? Right? Are we not perhaps called to be co-creators in an unfolding universe? Right? When we see beauty, when I see beauty, I feel compelled sometimes. I'm human as the rest of you. Sometimes I'm out to lunch somewhere. But I feel compelled to show, to point it out, to grab somebody and say, look, to share a little bit of the wonder, right? And perhaps, just perhaps, to make a little beauty of my own. Right? Inspiration. So our dance with beauty begins with looking. What if, so to say, what if Moses had been face down in his cell phone and slipped right past that burning bush? Right? He would have missed the chance to step off the path and take his shoes off and be on holy ground and hear a serious call to beauty. Go save your people or my people. You know, all of that might not have happened. And I ask you this, how many burning bushes have you missed in your senseless scurrying? And me too. How many bushes have we missed in our scurrying? Stop paying attention. Yes, we must look in order to see, and seeing starts from looking, requires a deliberate intention, a presence, right? A slowing down often, a quieting of our busy minds, right? And often waiting. In short, preparation and patient practice. As the Chinese proverb puts it, and I hope you've heard this one, plant a green tree in your heart, and perhaps a singing bird will come. And I love that. So I am an amateur photographer and an amateur poet. And when I'm in the world and beauty touches my heart, I have two sets of tools to bring to being, to focus myself. And one is photography, the art of gathering light, right? And the other is my words. I often try, when something strikes me, to immediately capture the essence of the experience in just a few words, just to jot down a couple thoughts either on my phone or in a little piece of paper in my pocket, right? And our dear poet, Mary Oliver, has said that she used to carry with her a little notebook on her every morning walks. And when something struck her, she jotted it down. And these for her, and this jotting of my own for me, become seeds for later poems, right? And then even further on for me, I have imagery from my photography, and I have thoughts and eventually poems, and all these things come together into the art that I call photo-poetics. And we'll see a lot of images today. We'll also see a few pieces of photo-poetics when I read a few poems. Right. So in the next 20 minutes, I'll show you that art, some photographs and the little poems that go with them. Folks in the room, we have paper and pens here. I would encourage you, if something grabs your attention, if you feel that little jolt in your heart, write down a couple words. It might be a color, it might be a relation of things, it might be that an image connects you to something that you're concerned about or thinking about, whatever it is. If you feel that inspiration, just jot down a few words. We'll leave a little room at the end to play with those words and let those words blossom a little bit into something bigger and more well-formed thought. So before we dive in, let's take 3 breaths together, settle ourselves, and ask God for the gift of presence. We breathe in and notice that we are here, and exhale slowly. We inhale again and reach for silence, and exhale slowly. We breathe in and the Spirit fills us. We exhale slowly. Amen. I'll start with a very short poem. This is from our very own Huntley Meadows Park, the wetland, just a mile or so up the road. I know many of you folks know it. I got to wondering what the birds thought when I stood there stuck in awe. And this is called Mirror. When the great blue heron unpacks her ungainly frame and unceremoniously lifts into graceful flight, I am shocked into mindfulness. Perhaps the heron feels something similar, watching me awaken. I should say that if I pause on an image, maybe because we had technical difficulties, but it might be because I want to breathe a moment and soak it in and sit with the image. So, for example, this little green heron, please, let's sit with him a sec. I'll give you 2 poems that were recently published by a church up in State College, Pennsylvania, St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. They have a little poetry journal they've done for the past couple of years. In 2022, their anthology was called Caring for Creation. So 2 poems from that, both are true stories. The first one will be called Mendedness. And during a recent trip to San Francisco, I had some time to explore, and I went to a place called Muir Woods, just over the Golden Gate Bridge to the north. And you know that in America, we set aside certain places as parks and preserves due to some beauty or ecological uniqueness or some special characteristic that they have. Sometimes these places take on the quality of sanctuary. It's a holy place where the veil may be thin and God can be noticed peering in from time to time, perhaps enjoying the same beauty that we do. I can see God going, man, that's good, right? So this poem is about what happens when that cathedral sanctity is temporarily interrupted. And this is photo-poetics. And you're not seeing it so well on the screen, but in paper, it works very nicely. So mendedness. I knew when I felt the maker of redwoods walking among the trees. I knew when those hot tears came that I would be struck for a while speechless, but graced and overflowing of heart. Nearby others, silent and opening, I suppose, to the same presence, an ancientness, a mendedness, so elusive in our scurrying. And we shared by smiles and eyes our wonder. And sometimes we are asked to feel and not describe, not even in the barest whisper. For words divide and thoughts compare, and even poems attempting the silent speech of hearts are but shadows of the experience. The cathedral quiet is split by 3 20-somethings, one on her phone and the others on about boyfriends or their boss and selfies, and not with their inside voices. And where reverence had reigned in this place set aside, now rose a distinct not here-ness, at once senseless, yet unavoidably sensed. But like all echoes, they passed, and their ripples left no lasting mark on the silence of morning and the Maker's 1,000-year-old trees. The second poem from St. Andrews this year is called Holy Mackerel. And 3 years ago, I was training to be a spiritual director. And in that training, we were asked to reflect on certain life experiences that may have molded our spirituality in some way. And I thought about my parents. They're on the Zoom, I believe. So hi, Mom, hi, Dad. When we were young, my dad liked to drive, and he took us all over the country and into Canada. My mom taught us the names of things, the stones and the plants and the animals, and instilled a certain sense of wonder. I started writing Holy Mackerel during that spiritual direction training, and I finished it just this year, just in time for the St. Andrews thing. Sometimes it takes time. These go through many iterations. You'll see a picture, it's on the screen now, from my parents' photo album of 14-year-old me up along the Bay of Fundy in Canada, green laced high tops and all, and that soon to be famous mackerel. All right? So here's Holy Mackerel. An industrial pier for the big ships on the road between the lakes and the faraway sea. The unnamed green blue of water deep beneath a sodden sky. An industrial pier for a boy on his own road, hungry for the world and hoping for a fish. That mackerel leapt from the sea, not of her own volition, but on my line, a sacrifice, an offering, a dialogue with boyish curiosity. I held her close, a compact tube of living mystery tensing. I held her and she knew me. Repulsed at the pain I must be causing, I removed the hook, and with it, the division between the world and me. Opened by revulsion to the beauty in my hand, a breathing, shimmering, wordless, woven blue of night sea and the light-flecked sky. Splash, the mackerel was gone, returned to her deep, but leaving the forever smell of fish on these hands of hurt, and the insoluble color of living sea in these boyhood eyes of memory. Does a fish remember the pain of the hook? Does she know the gift she gave? 40 years on, and I am still that boy like it was yesterday, both filled and empty of the earth. The next two poems were published in the 2021 St. Andrews Anthology. The theme for 2021 was poetry in the time of pandemic. The second one, the poem Pebbles, is for Maria's mother. But first is Angels Come Both. Here I am, Lord, you would probably say, should God speak from a column of flame. Your response to miracles, knee-jerk, fearing plagues, and the dire pronouncements of prophets. But how do you answer the birth breath of new quiet streets, the birds reclaiming the city square, that last golden leaf stuck by frost to the glass, grace for just one more day? Angels come both in thunderous light and in the subtle poverty of silence, in glory and through the shiver of moonlight bare on silver twigs. Here I am, Lord, you answer the insistent rattling at the gate. But what of the scratching of the mouse in the cellar of your heart? And pebbles. The lights go out before we notice the beautiful stars. The nugget of our dreams appears in the last shovel of our mountain of stones. The dust of our roads and smokes of our festal fires color the setting sun. And the eyes of memory see beauty where we didn't think to look before. A stone in deep water, no light, no bottom in sight, trails heat into the darkening, while a prayer climbs strings of rain and curtains of stars on invisible wings of thank you. Looking is a state, seeing requires a something, and so it is with faith and belief. We must look before seeing, and out of a wildness of faith, come to believe. And now quickly to a poem about paying attention. This is the hedgerow prayer. My wife asked, what do you think of birdsong as a blooming? She listens with the ears of her heart these days, listening that garden gate of grace. The hedgerow overflows with the songs of birds in bloom, feathered angels in bushes burning, unquenched by the morning rain, and yet unconsumed in the holy air. And I thank the maker of such exuberance, the composer of birds, the designer of me, equipped just so as to notice the upwelling indwelling. Oh, my ears of hearing, oh, my lungs of air, carry my yes to heaven on these strings of morning rain, that I might do my little part in the unfolding of the world. Maria and I have a little table in our kitchen, sitting snug in our little bay window. And one of the blinds there has a broken slat, in my perception, a perfect imperfection, which has prompted so far 2 short poems. Visitation is one of these. A most amazing thing. I looked up from coffee this morning to see, perfectly framed from my point of view, through the half-inch wide broken slat of the window blinds, a young hawk sitting on the porch railing for me. She stayed long enough for an iPhone shot and then moved on towards Bethlehem. It was Christmas morning. So I think most of the folks in the room know about Iona. Iona is a tiny island in the Scottish Inner Hebrides, a holy place, a destination and home of saints and kings. St. Columba Columbkille came there from Ireland in the year 563 with his monks and his hard, story-rich Christianity. Our own St. Aidan studied there and was sent to establish the foundation at Lindisfarne on another holy island on Britain's other shore. Pilgrims seek Iona and are sometimes changed resistlessly. Our St. Aidan's community has gone over twice. Maria and I made our pilgrimage to the Inner Hebrides and Iona in the fall of 2016. I tried to capture the journey and the dance of stone, water, and sky, the marks perhaps of a restless creator uncontainable by things. So this is my song cycle, Hebrides. And it may help to know, if you don't, that Skye and Mool are larger islands along the way. Hebrides, intraordinary. We idolize the extraordinary, forgetting to look and listen with our hearts. What are the intraordinary, the little things speaking quiet volumes? Look, fingerprints of the Maker still adorn every quiet corner. The Isle of Skye. Skye with shoulders bare and her cold cloud mantle wetted in the green-gray sea, sings that the price of living is oft to do without. The land close to what it was before the fall from Eden, risen fresh again from the cycling sea. Sky splashed, cloud wrapped, ever wrecked, ever newly made, where hunger and joy complete each other's sentences, while the sun and the clouds dance a careless afternoon. Through her skin of moor and stone, perceive an untamed life. The Isle of Mool. Broad-backed headlands and heather dressed for fall. You can feel it in the daybreak chill and in the unexpected hurrying among the flocks. At Theonport, waiting as the sea breaks itself into air on the gale, waiting for crossing. Tempest. The sea is slate and releases the frothed energy of her making, reckless to the wind. Waves of rain, as if to break the strand, suggest a second sea at angle to the main. Clouds tease the hilltop's hair and promise more of light, more rain before evening. The hills need not climb so earnestly to the sky, for today she wears her moods unveiled. The Isle of Iona. One isle. An emerald rolled from heaven, splashed in a blue defining sea, flashes light like birds flitting in and out, a gyre of fog and rain. Ermine sands adorn stones hard armored against the sea, like our hearts beating order into the undisciplined wind. Pilgrims have wrought meaning here for 1,000 years and half that again, yet I can't wrap my heart around this place. 2, Columba. I imagine these rainbows lighting your eyes, these same clouds tipping over into a cloying rain, this same sea turning just offshore to a sea-wet sky. I imagine your rough men of God landing loud and seeking peace. Did your feet, like mine, skate this cobbled and uneven path to see what half-spun newness waited by the water? And did your heart so leap as mine now leaps when the morning sparkled in the eyes of the sea? My eyes wide, I think on you, charming the sweet angels of this light, tricky place. And 3, crossing. The ferry finally sailed after waiting without knowing. Gale winds and tides, they said. And some who had traveled their lives for this crossing did not in the end go over. But the boat finally sailed and we passed to Iona, new again on the sapphire sea. Across the threshold lay only a path to the next, like a good answer, birthing new questions. And ahead, a yellow light slips silky under the door. peat smoke sour on the air. For the Greeks, cosmos is all that ever was, is now, or ever will be. I did it this morning, world without end, amen. I feel like we should throw that in there. There's a lot of talk among scientists about the beginning of time and substance and matter and energy and all of that. Others approach these questions from the heart, and they give us myth. Well, here's mine. Before, there was an essence, unimaginably singular, yet willingly vulnerable in its nature of love. And it was decidedly, recognizably alone. It conceived that there might be others, that somewhere could be a something, a someone, but it had never found or even seen signs of a friend. Over an interval out of time came a dream, a vision outlandish and new, an inspiration in breath unbidden, that an end to longing could be made. He prepared his clays, made brushes and shadows, lit fires and stored up light. In a crucible of longing, he mixed the stuff that would soon be substance. When all was ready, he rested deep, for he knew that ahead were labors long, and he looked upon his crazy plan and dared to see that it was good. And he who would soon be called God by his work, although that was not part of the plan, awoke before not dawn in the not dark of morning and greeted the first day of creation. And softly at first, but quick and with increasing confidence and purpose, the Lord of the unseen and of the soon to be seen found his clear voice and sang. Now, we have a few minutes for each of you, if you wish, to make a little beauty. I hope that something that you've seen or heard has caused your heart to swell, or at least gave you pause and maybe brought a little smile. Was God present here with us today or this evening? Did something you heard or saw call God to your mind or heart? Perhaps you jotted down your immediate reaction. I encourage you now to take a few minutes to play with those first impressions. Can you describe the experience, your feeling, beauty pulling some string in you in a few poignant words? For example, maybe it's pure description, a color, a juxtaposition of colors, motion, stillness, an animal in its setting. Maybe it's your feeling, your response to something you saw, a parallel between an image and something that arose in you. Maybe there was something in a poem or an image that established a bridge in you to something on your mind or in your heart. Anything else, whatever caught your attention, play with that now. The point is to try to capture your experience in words, to allow beauty's opening in your heart to flower into an object of further inspiration. Remember that this may be just a beginning. There are no wrong answers. And after a few minutes, we'll allow a little time to talk and digest a little bit about what we've thought and written. So, yeah, a little light I think would be good. Now we'll continue to cycle through a few more images. You're curious for that. Is that good for light? I'm seeing nods, yeah. Yeah. I see several people still writing, maybe just a couple more minutes for now. So let me say this first, we'll get it out of the way. I'd love to hear from any and all of you with questions or suggestions or further discussion, like the question we got at the beginning. I'd love to chew on that one. So if you care to jot down some of the contact information, again, I'd love to hear from any and all of you.